Hello students, my name is Quentin and I'm here to tell you about my new course, my new IELTS vocabulary course. And this course will help you to expand and use your IELTS vocabulary. How do you get a high score in IELTS? One of the ways that you can get a high score in IELTS is to improve your vocabulary, especially in the way that you use your vocabulary. If you look at this slide, you can see that we have two kinds of vocabulary. We have receptive vocabulary. This is vocabulary that you can recognize, but you don't often use in your speaking and writing. But if you are reading or listening, you can recognize this vocabulary. So we call this vocabulary receptive vocabulary. The second kind of vocabulary is productive vocabulary. And productive vocabulary is the vocabulary that you use every day in your speaking and your writing. Now, for most people, their productive vocabulary is much smaller than the receptive vocabulary. We usually are able to recognize many more words than we actually use in speaking or writing. And this is because every day when we're using English, we usually talk about the same topics and we use the same language and the same vocabulary. So one of the ways to get a high score in your IELTS test is to increase your productive vocabulary by making your receptive vocabulary more productive. And that means how to use the vocabulary that you already know, how to use this in production, in speaking and writing. Now, on my new course, there are several ways that I will show you how to increase your productive vocabulary. The first way is through word partnerships. And word partnerships are very, very common in English, and they are very, very useful to learn. Let me give you an example. If you look here, you can see a word partnership table for this word, biodiversity. Now, I'm sure you know what biodiversity means, but probably you never use it very often because you don't know which other words can you use together with biodiversity. So if you look at this word partnership table, you can see here the other words that you can use with the key noun. So for example, here we have noun of. So we have the preservation of, the conservation of, the protection of biodiversity, systems of biodiversity, the loss of biodiversity. Here we have the most frequent verbs that we can use with this noun, biodiversity. And the verbs here are save, sustain, protect, and lose. And these are the verbs that we frequently use together with biodiversity. Now in this column here, you can see the adjectives, the 形容词, that we use with biodiversity. And the adjectives are soil and agricultural biodiversity. Then we have marine. This means the sea, in the sea, biodiversity in the sea. And then we have freshwater. And freshwater means rivers and lakes, any water which is not the sea. Now down here you can see the words used in example sentences. Look, we are losing agricultural biodiversity due to over-farming. The preservation of biodiversity should be our priority. If we don't try to protect soil biodiversity, we will have terrible problems in the future. So you can see that this way of learning English, this way of learning vocabulary is very useful because it encourages you to use the words that you already know. And it shows you how you can combine different words together. And this will expand your vocabulary. And in my book here, there are many, many of these kind of word partnership tables. Now, in addition to word partnerships, on the course, I will also teach you some grammar chunks that you can use in your speaking or your writing. Here are some examples from the same topic, the topic of the environment. And if you look here, you can see these grammar chunks. Be a part of NP or VP. NP means noun phrase, 名词片语. Be unable to, be concerned about, be eager to, be necessary to, be responsible for, be suitable for, have an opportunity to, pay attention to, and take responsibility for. So these are chunks, grammar chunks, that you can also use to make your English more accurate, to increase your grammatical accuracy when you are speaking or writing, yes? And also in the book there are many, many chunks that you can learn to improve your vocabulary. Now, in addition to word partnerships and chunks, there are also many words in English which can be verbs or nouns. They can be both, and there is no change in the form. And if you look here, you can see some examples. These words can be both verbs and nouns. But when we are using them as a verb or using them as a noun, they are often quite different. The grammar is quite different. The meaning is the same, but the grammar is quite different. So, for example, we say, I aim to help the environment, or that's a verb, I aim to. However, we can also use it as a noun. My aim is to, right? Cause also can be a verb or a noun. The cause of this problem is, that's a noun. Or we can also use it as a verb, and we can say, this causes many problems. Focus. Focus can be a verb or a noun. So if it's a verb, we say focus on. We need to focus on different solutions. Or we can use it as a noun, and we can say the focus of our attempts to solve the problem, the focus of. Help can also be a verb or a noun. I help someone to do something, this is a verb. Or I offer someone my help, this is a noun. And finally, result. This will result in new possibilities. That's a verb. Or the result of this will be new possibilities. This is a noun. So all of these words, which can be verbs or nouns, they are always very tricky for Taiwanese students, in my experience. And in the book, there are many, each unit and each lesson that I teach you, we will be focusing on these kind of words which can be verbs or nouns. And finally, in addition to word partnerships, chunks, and verb-noun words, we're also going to learn some idioms, 片语, that you can use in your speaking or writing. And here are some examples. Look, here we have the idiom, and here we have the meaning or the explanation of the idiom. So, for example, the first one, be caught between a rock and a hard place. This means be in a nasty dilemma. Yeah? Another one is cut no ice with someone. And this means that something is not acceptable. Your suggestion cuts no ice with me. This means that your suggestion is not acceptable to me. Another one, a drop in the ocean. A drop in the ocean means that something is inadequate, means it's not enough, it's not sufficient for our needs. Another one is to light a fire under someone, and this means to convey a sense of urgency. When we want to express the idea that something is very urgent, then we can use this idiom, light a fire under someone. And then finally, we have this idiom, make waves. And this means to cause a disturbance or upset. To cause disturbance. So if we want to make waves, that means we want to upset people, we want to disturb people. And in the lessons and in my book, there are many, many idioms like this that you can use for speaking and writing, and I will teach you how to use them accurately and fluently. Okay, and here are the topics. We have 5 classes together, and each class will have a different topic based on the book, and the topics are all common topics in recent IELTS tests. So you can be sure that the vocabulary you are learning is very, very suitable for IELTS. The first topic, for example, is about the environment. This is a very common topic in the IELTS test, and a lot of people have problems expressing their ideas about the environment. The second class, the topic will be technology, how we use technology and how we talk about technology or write about technology. The third topic is gender issues. So, for example, equal rights for men and women, equal employment rights, same-sex marriage, these kind of topics. This is also a very common topic in IELTS. The fourth topic that we're going to learn about on the course is euthanasia and medical ethics. Now, what is euthanasia? Euthanasia means choosing when you want to die. And medical ethics are the problems which doctors encounter. For example, should doctors tell a patient that they are going to die, or should they not tell the patient? How should doctors deal with the families of patients? How should we deal with people who are very, very sick and who are going to die? These kind of problems, we call this euthanasia and medical ethics. And this is a very advanced topic and is also quite common in IELTS. And finally, we have the topic of GM food, genetically modified food and science. And we will be learning the vocabulary that you can use to talk about GM science, genetically modified food, and how we change the food that we eat, how we grow the food, and how we change the genes of the food. Okay? So I do hope that you will join me for this class and learn some interesting new vocabulary that you can use to improve your IELTS score. Hope to see you then.